Hello, this is Richard Lowe, and this is the Leaders and Their Stories podcast. I'm the writing king and ghostwriting guru. And with me is Pat Welsh, who is going to talk about leadership today. Pat, how you doing?
Doing well, Richard. Thank you.
So why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, the Reader's Digest version, I'm a national speaker, trainer, author, and podcaster on the warrior, servant leader mindset. And I also teach constitutional law and strategic management for law enforcement through the Southern Police Institute out of the University of Louisville.
Interesting. And your background?
Born in Dublin, Ireland. I lived in an orphanage from the time I was 3 days old till 16 months old, adopted to the U.S., and eventually became a lawyer, was a prosecutor turned cop, and I was in law enforcement for 30 years and retired 13 years ago and moved to Colorado.
Interesting. I've been to Colorado maybe 3 or 4 times. Seems like an interesting state.
It's lovely. It's interesting. The politics is interesting, but I don't go there. But you can't. I mean, this is God's country when it comes to. I live right at the foothills of the Front Range on 5 acres, and I these 68 miles unobstructed views of the Front Range. So it is absolutely gorgeous out here. But don't tell anybody that. We don't want them moving here.
Yeah, I went to the Larkspur Renaissance Fair a few times.
I live 2.5 miles north and west of the Renfest.
That's fun. It's a fun one. All right, so we're here talking about leadership. Let's talk about leadership. So you said in your write-up that there's different kinds of leadership. What are those?
Well, first, I'm big on defining your terms so people understand where you're coming from and we don't confuse. And when I talk about leadership, that's just one leg of a 3-legged stool, if you will. I'm a big advocate of being a warrior, servant, and a leader, all three at the same time. And I define a warrior as a person who stands up, shows up, and defends what they believe, whatever that might be in your work life, your personal life, your faith life. If you are willing to stand up, show up, and defend, and not be a jackass about it and
Right.
being a jerk, but defend what you believe, that's a warrior mindset. The servant mindset is a person that puts the wants and needs of others before themselves, whether as a parent, as a spouse. When I was in law enforcement, it doesn't matter. It's always concentrate and strive to put the wants and needs of others before your own. And then a leader is very, very simple. A leader is simply a person of influence and impact in someone else's life. It wasn't when I was a cop. I retired as a superintendent, rank of major. And I would tell my guys, even when I was teaching at the police academy, it's not about bars, stars, and stripes. Positional leadership, you're a leader if you influence and impact the lives of other people. And so that's what I advocate when I'm on the speaking tour. A couple of books I've written is all about that trilogy, if you will, of that mindset.
Interesting. Would you say good leaders are then servant leaders and warriors together? I guess you can have them together.
Well, let's put it this way. Hitler was a great leader for all the wrong reasons. He was definitely not a servant. And you can be a warrior and not be a servant and maybe not even be a leader. The best example in my lifetime of a person who displayed all three parts of that trilogy is Mother Teresa of Calcutta, now Saint Teresa of Calcutta in the Catholic Church. So you can be a great leader and be the north end of a southbound horse and not be a warrior and not be a servant.
I see. What are some examples of good leaders today?
Wow. Sometimes this gets difficult because you start pushing buttons you don't mean to push. I would say, and I'm a registered independent. I'm not a fan of politics to any great degree. That I think President Trump touches each of those mindsets at times. When you get into athletics, there's some great warrior servant leaders in a variety of sports. And then those are the ones you hear about. It's the unsung warrior servant leaders that you never hear about. There was a kid. He was a kid when he started. He was 21, and I taught his police academy, and he's in his early 40s now. And I learned this. It just happened within the last year or so that he got a call by a 9-year-old called the police that theft. His his lawnmower had been stolen. And this kid lived in a depressed neighborhood, economically depressed neighborhood. And this officer goes to take the report. And this little 9-year-old was earning money by cutting grass in the neighborhood. And now he didn't have a lawnmower. So this officer took the report and left. And then he came back about 45 minutes later. He spent $400 of his own money and bought this kid a new lawnmower and gave it to him and then left. He didn't want any accolades. He didn't want anybody to know about it. He was being a warrior or servant and a leader. But his mom called the police chief and shared with the police chief what happened. And then she called one of the local medias.
Okay.
And so he got the recognition, but that's not why he did it. And those are real leaders, those type of people.
Yes. Yeah. One person that I look up to is Michael Jordan. Very big servant leader, I think. He's human, so he's got his faults, but definitely up there.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Tim Tebow. I've always said this, and I live in Colorado. I'm not a Broncos fan. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri for about 11 years, so I'm an old school Kansas City Chiefs fan. But I would tell all my friends here that are big Broncos fans, I say, man, the worst mistake Denver ever did was getting rid of Tim Tebow. And they're like, why? I said, because you don't win 2 national championships in the Heisman Trophy and suck, for one thing. But his leadership characteristics, his virtues, his moral compass, that's the type of person you want bringing your team together. And they missed a great opportunity because one of the biggest obstacles of maintaining and attaining leadership influence is ego.
Right.
And Holiday wrote a great book called Ego is the Enemy. And I think that's what happens a lot in the sports arena and in the political arena is ego takes such a toll on people's opportunity to actually be true leaders. And they get sucked into these rabbit holes and other egos of other people to undermine and destroy you because, and then fill in the blank.
Right. Yeah. Egos are big, and they can undermine a leader. Although they can help make a leader too, like in politics. If you need an ego to, I'm thinking JFK. What's funny is he wasn't in office very long, but his impact, like say on the lunar landings and stuff, was dramatic. So I find him a very interesting person.
Yeah, and he had and that that's you're my era. I mean, we people will go, wow, where were you on 9/11? And everybody, if you're old enough, you can remember it. But you ask one of us, where were you the day John F. Kennedy got assassinated? We can tell you exactly, where we were. And he had, besides the politics, it was really interesting because I've never even been to public school. Ever, all the way through law school. I went to Catholic schools, but he had that diversion, that obstacle of, oh, you're Catholic and you're going to be loyal to the Pope, and all these other things of people trying to undermine him for, I thought petty reasons. Yeah.
Interesting. So if you're running a business or you're a business leader at any level, what would be the characteristics that we would want to look for?
Well, a lot of things. First of all, is a very rock solid moral compass that my challenge coin for my company, on the back of it, it says, always strive to do the right thing at the right time, the right way, and for the right reasons. And that's a moral compass. And so from a leadership standpoint, and not only just leadership, some people go, well, I don't want to be a leader, or I'm not a leader. And you have a business and they have great management skills,
right.
But they don't see themselves as a leader. So even in just management, which is systems and processes, you want somebody that has that rock solid foundation of a moral compass, that they'll do the right thing at the right time, the right way, for the right reasons, even if it's going to negatively impact them.
Right.
So that's a huge one. I think another huge characteristic, or virtues, if you will, leaders have to have a strong sense of hope and charity. And because those are so positive. And when people are struggling, or when you as a leader are struggling, if you can rely on having that strong foundation or mindset attitude of hope and charity, and then personally, I believe the third aspect of that is that you're a person of faith, that you're a person of faith, like whatever that faith is, but you have a strong depth to your convictions are based on not situational ethics,
Right.
but based on, in my case, the Christian values and faith.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. We're getting near the end, and if you want to have a couple little wrap up, how would you wrap it up?
The worst, instead of giving you the best advice, leadership advice ever, I'm going to give you the worst leadership advice
Oh,
you ever got. And you got it, and I got it. And if you were brought up this way, I would leave it. I'd leave you with this thought. If you were taught, if you want it done right, do it yourself. Get rid of that mindset, because that's not leadership. That's doing somebody else's job for them. So you have to, leadership it's in community. It's a group effort. It's not a solo journey.
well, good. I understand. Well, thank you for coming. How can people get hold of you?
My website is the Warrior Servant Leader Podcast.com. I have my own podcast. That's and all my connections are on that website. So the Warrior Servant Leader Podcast.com.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, this has been the Leaders in Their Stories podcast. I'm Richard Lowe, the writing king and ghostwriting guru. Thank you for coming to the podcast, and we have these regularly, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.